Good morning, sports diehards. Welcome to the 31st edition of the Living Room podcast, a diehard sports radio production. I'm your host, Steve Itzkowitz, a.k.a. Speakeasy Steve, back here with Jack Angelo. LeBron is taking his talents to Liberty Town, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to join the Sixers. What does that mean for LeBron? What does that mean for the Sixers? What does that mean for the defending champion Knicks and the NBA as a whole? We're going to get into that to lead off. We're going to continue our question segment on the National Football League, the question that each team has to answer for this 2026 season. We're going to the AFC West, possibly the AFC North if there's time. We're also going to react to the end of the World Cup and Spain, the champions of the World Cup for 2026, stopping a bid by Argentina to go back-to-back World Cup championships for them, but they fell short against Spain. We'll get into that as far as takeaways and who we believe was the most interesting and most exciting player from the entire World Cup tournament. We'll also get into Tarik Skubal, the Detroit Tigers, to trade him or not to trade him. We will figure out if he's going to stay or go. In the meantime, I will go ahead and bring back our panelists here, our long-timer to the Dire Sports Radio family, and a man we call Batman because he's swinging for the fences every time he states a take, Mr. Jack Angelo. Jack, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Steve. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. A little bit cloudy here in Southern California. It's been humid, although not like it is back east. So a little bit of mugginess.
We got a little respite,
which I would argue is not a bad thing here in California. Every now and then, a little mugginess does the skin good. It also gives people an idea of what it's like to live elsewhere in the country.
Yeah, we've had a brief respite from the humidity, but that's coming back. We've had oodles of rain, but it's been a sunny past couple of days, and it's nice out here in the Northeast.
Very, very nice. What did you get into this past week? I know you work on Saturday nights at the bar, but how was your week? Any highlights?
I had a regional conference in Albany Tuesday and Wednesday, so I did with some coworkers make my way to Albany, New York, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, and we had a nice high impact leadership conference for the bank.
Oh, very nice. Well, congratulations. Usually when you go to things like that, it means you're doing a good job. You're going in the right direction and people want to hear you.
Oh, let's hope.
Banking industry that you've been in for a while. They've been in for a while now. For me this week, I've come to the healthy conclusion that online dating sucks. I'm sick of it. I've been trying it ever since I got last year, and it's not working for me. I mean, you send a message, someone likes you, you send a message, it takes some days to respond, or they don't respond at all, and you're thinking, wait a minute, how long does it take to respond to a message that someone sends you that you supposedly like from a dating profile? And then I've had some dates that didn't go past the first date, or the person who liked me gave me vibes of my ex-wife and was too controlling, and I have to walk away at that point because there's no way I want to date my wife again, given what happened last year. So that's my takeaway for this week.
Single for a while, and if you haven't
dating is kind of a drag.
Well, you said you've had eyes on relocating eventually. Maybe stay single until you relocate and clean slate it.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll see. I'm trying to stay here in Southern California because it'd be easier. But yes, I'm keeping my options open right now. But maybe the right woman comes along here in Southern California. That might be a reason to stay. Who knows? So I'm doing everything I can to stay. But you're right. I might be leaving eventually. So we will see. In the meantime, speaking of clean slating, looks like the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sorry, the Eagles. Thinking NFL all the time this time of the year. But the Philadelphia 76ers are clean slating the process, if you will, having an offseason that has been quite prolific in terms of player acquisition. First, they acquire Jaylen Brown by way of a trade with the Boston Celtics. And now LeBron James is bringing his talents to Liberty Town, the city of brotherly love, coming from the Lakers, adding to a mix of Jaylen Brown, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and now LeBron James. Jack, I know you have a number of thoughts on this. Looking at this from a New York Knicks diehard point of view, how did you react to the signing of LeBron James of free agency by the rival 76ers?
I was actually kind of surprised. Um, I think LeBron would have been a better fit in Miami. They have in Philadelphia now a bunch of ball handlers, but all of them are ball handlers. Brown, Maxey, Edgecombe, LeBron, um, Embiid, as much as a center can be a ball handler. I don't love Philadelphia's bench. And the first thing that leapt to my mind was there's only one basketball on a team full of guys, a starting five full of guys that want to handle the ball. None of them, and I mean none of them, and that includes LeBron James, is a terrific off-ball player. Maybe LeBron used to be. I don't think he is anymore. None of them are great off-ball players. So on paper, yeah, the Sixers are going to win the offseason. Yes, the Sixers will be a top 3 seed. I don't think this is going to be as big as some pundits think it will be. They got a decent coach in Nick Nurse. Their starting five is good. Is it better than the Knicks? I'm not sure about that. Um, I mean, the only one that I'd really put over the Knicks, over the Knicks is maybe, LeBron over Josh Hart. Actually, definitely LeBron over Josh Hart. But other than that, um, it really doesn't bother me as a Knicks fan. I just think it's a weird fit. I mean, you had Jaylen Brown, who got tired of being quote unquote Robin in Boston. Well, that's great. Now you're in Philadelphia and you've become Alfred. So I mean, it's it's a
Alfred,
weird.
Alfred the faithful assistant slash running the day-to-day
The butler.
operations for Bruce Wayne Enterprises.
So I'm
That's a good
I'm
one.
curious to see a couple of things. Number one, how this team gels together. I don't think it'll come together right away. I wouldn't be shocked to see Philly stumble out of the gate a little bit and get better as the season goes on, as they get more used to each other. Like I said, there's only one ball and a lot of guys on that team who are used to handling the ball. I don't love Philly's bench. Um,
Well, who is coming off their bench? I mean, their
I,
35 should be pretty good, but who actually is going to? Because I know, unfortunately, a lot of fans and media cover teams in the NBA based solely on stars,
yep.
and winning championships is always not about coverage. It's about, well, I'll put it to you this way. If everyone is a star on a team, that's an all-star team, and they don't get to play in the championship. You have to pick from many different teams. But if you're a team that is going to play 82 games together on a 2-month playoff run, then stars need support. I've seen a lot of movies. I watched a lot of basketball games. There is always supporting stars and supporting actors that are going to allow the movie to be robust, because we don't live in a simple world as human beings. It's very complex. You have to have similarities, but you also have to have contrast. So you're going to have a star-driven lineup in Philly, no question about it. But who are going to be the role players? Because if Philly has designs on winning a championship this year, you'll need a few unsung heroes to go along with those stars, because unsung heroes, the best thing they could do is allow stars to be stars while reducing how much pressure is on stars to get the job done when it matters most.
I mean, who are you looking at? Who coming off that bench? I mean, you're gonna have Maxey, James, Brown, Embiid, and I'm forgetting one. Edgecombe as your starting five in
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
too much.
I mean, who's they drafted the kid Phylon. Who else is coming off the bench? It's really going to scare you. Dean Wade, um, Ariel Hokporty, uh, Jabari Walker. I mean, like I said, I don't love Philly's bench, and some of these guys, LeBron and Embiid specifically, how many games are they playing this year? And that Philly crowd is tough. Philly stumbles out of the gate.
Yeah.
That crowd is going to turn on LeBron real quick. Real quick.
Yeah.
So, as a Knicks fan, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what happens out there in Philadelphia. So,
yeah, Nick for Simons is a guy off the bench I would look at.
What do I think?
Guards,
My overall thoughts in comparison to the Knicks, health assumed, okay, next year in the playoffs, the Knicks won't sweep Philly. Philly will get 1, maybe 2 games. I still think the Knicks come out on top in that series.
Mm-hmm.
By a wide margin, actually.
Even without Mitchell Robinson, although they brought in Andre Drummond to replace him.
Mitchell Robinson was a very good role
against
Joel. He was a backup center, and he's always hurt.
Yeah,
always hurt.
Yeah.
So Mitchell Robinson would have been nice to have Mitchell
Drummond
Robinson.
Will probably play more games. Drummond will probably play more games.
Absolutely,
older than Robinson is. Maybe not quite as athletic.
What are your takes on LeBron to Philly?
Well,
and would he have been a better fit in Miami?
Yeah, I thought he would have been a better fit in Miami. But the reason why LeBron James is going to Philly is that he wants to win another championship. I don't think even if he went to Miami, that was going to be the case this year because Miami feels a little bit top heavy. Philadelphia, There's more star power down there, believe it or not. And I say this knowing full well that Giannis Antetokounmpo, a 2-time MVP, a 1-time champion, is down there in Miami. Put him with LeBron James and Bam Adebayo and Davion Mitchell, and that's a pretty good team as far as your top 4 goes. But what happens after that? Here's to your point about how this is going to come together. The first thing I'm looking at is the head coach, Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is going to be expected to lead this team to the championship round, if not a championship, because he's done it before. He won a championship with the Toronto Raptors in 2019, led by Kawhi Leonard, who was a star, and then you had a great complimentary star in Pascal Siakam. Kyle Lowry finally had a great playoff run. A lot of times he flamed down in the playoffs before Kawhi Leonard got there, but Lowry was a key piece. Then you have Fred VanVleet coming off the bench, who became a star player and now is going to hopefully, be starting games for the Houston Rockets this year, as they brought him in specifically to help them go to another level after the championship experience he got playing in Toronto in 2019. But that team didn't have nearly as much star power as Philadelphia comes in with. You're talking about Jaylen Brown, former Finals MVP, multi-time All-Star. LeBron James, future Hall of Famer, and the argument of the greatest of all time. You also have Joel Embiid, who, when he's healthy, is one of the most dominant centers in the game, can handle the ball on the perimeter, can shoot from the perimeter. He's very athletic and obviously big and dominant in the low post when he wants to be. And then you have, obviously, Tyrese Maxey, who's a rising star in the NBA and a couple of time All-Star. And then VJ Edgecombe is an up-and-comer, but who's coming off the bench? To me, here's the main question that I have. Who's going to sacrifice? Who is going to be – because let's face it, we've seen super teams before. And who's going to sacrifice? You might recall the 2004 Lakers with Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Gary Payton, Karl Malone, losing in 5 games to the Pistons in the 2004 NBA Finals. Then we go ahead 9 years to 2012, 2013. Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, Steve Nash, Dwight Howard. Who's sacrificing for that team? They flamed out in the first round, had some injury issues this year, particularly with Nash. Who is going to be the guy that sacrifices? To me, based on bringing him in the salary slot that they brought him in at, I think that's going to be LeBron James, actually. I think Jaylen Brown and Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid are going to be first, second, third in the pecking order offensively as far as who's going to eat offensively before LeBron James. Ideally, with LeBron, you bring him in to be a ball handler, and hopefully Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid can play off the ball as a center. He's going to be relying on guys getting him the ball, guys like LeBron James, guys like Tyrese Maxey and Jaylen Brown. So obviously Joel Embiid as a center is playing off the ball anyways. That's a part of being a center. But you're going to have to feed him. And, is he going to be healthy, by the way, when you need him to? Because if he is, he's deadly. But LeBron James, to me, has to be the guy that sacrifices his offensive game and sets everybody else up. Ideally, if you're Philly this year, You want to have LeBron. I don't know if LeBron James is going to average 20 points a game this season. I could see him not averaging 20 points a game, maybe between 15 and 18. I see him in a Magic Johnson role where he is pass first, shoot second, maybe takes over a game every now and then when he needs to, which he's more than capable of doing. But a guy who averages between 15 and 18 points a game, 10 to 12 assists a game. That's the key number, the assists that he can provide. And he's a very, very good passer. He always has been in his NBA. He's very smart. He knows how to get guys in their spots, knows how to get them the ball, knows when to get them the ball. He'll figure all that stuff out. But ideally, he's your point forward coming to this whole thing. He handles the ball. Jaylen Brown and Tarik Skubal actually learn to play off the ball. It's going to take some time. Nick Nurse organized him that way, and then you have Embiid be the dominant force in the middle, and hopefully he is healthy enough to be as dominant as he could be. But that, to me, is the best bet with LeBron. And since LeBron is coming in making $4 million this season, you don't expect him to be the best player on the team at that salary slot. He can be a complementary piece, and the biggest complementary piece that he can be is a guy who gets everyone set up where they want to be set up at in the offense, gets the ball to them at the right time in the right spot, and he averages 10 to 12 assists a game, 15 to 18 points a game, takes over the game when he needs to, is more Magic Johnson than he is the guy that is currently the all-time leading scorer in NBA history.
Let me ask you this: health assumed, can Philly win the East?
They can, if we know who is going to be backing up, who the reserve players are going to be. It could be Freddie Simons. It could be Jabari Walker. It could be
Dean Wade.
Dean Wade. I almost said Dwayne Wade, but Dean Wade, same family lineage. But if they develop, if they come together as a team, this is going to be Nick Nurse's challenges: how to get this team organized, how to keep everyone happy, who sacrifices, and who is going to be the unsung heroes that every championship team needs. The Josh Hart ties for the New York Knicks, or the Alex Caruso ties for the Los Angeles Lakers, or the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who are those guys going to be? If they are healthy and they can figure out who the unsung heroes are going to be, who step up, then yeah, Philadelphia can absolutely get out of the East this year. No question about it. But obviously, that is contingent upon a number of things working out, how the team comes together, who sacrifices, and who the unsung heroes are, and how Nick Nurse, in his championship experience, is going to manage the entire situation.
Well, like I said, yeah, I mean, is it possible they come out of the East? Yes. But it's going to take a while for this team to gel. There's already pressure on the Sixers right now. They are the chic pick to come out of the East right now.
And you're also talking about low managing, too. I don't mean to cut you off, but low managing. They're going to low manage LeBron. You're certainly going to low manage Joel Embiid, maybe not have him play on back-to-backs. You've got to keep those guys healthy. And also the defense. How's the defense going to look? LeBron's going to have to focus more on defense, because if he's not a focal point offensively, which I anticipate he would not be, except passing the basketball, scoring occasionally, he's also going to have to focus on defense as well. Can he be that guy throughout the regular season that will make an impact defensively, aside from communicating, being the quarterback on defense? Will he be able to really D guys up on the opposing team? And again, Joel Embiid being healthy too. So there's a low management situation. The Sixers too, particularly for LeBron and for Embiid.
Load management and health. And as I was starting to say, there's already going to be immense pressure on this team to come flying out. So that's going to be tough to do with so many ball handlers in the starting five. It's going to take a minute for them to find their groove. And if they do kind of stumble out of the gate, start, 14-12, let's say, not horrible, but certainly not dominant. Well, I haven't looked at their schedule.
They'll have a lot. Well, the schedule's not out yet. This is why the NBA was begging LeBron to sign somewhere. Now they're working on the schedule.
Well, I can guarantee Philly's going to be at Madison Square Garden. It probably opening night.
Yeah,
and Christmas Day.
Sixers next.
I guarantee they will be at Madison Square Garden opening night and Christmas Day. Christmas Day for sure. Opening night, I'm still, but if they do get off to a mediocre start, along with the pressure that's already there, that pressure is going to get ratcheted up when Philly's 14-12 theoretically, potentially. How do they handle that pressure?
One game at a time. I hate to sound cliche about it, but when you're under pressure, and oh, by the way, sports pressure is not the same thing as life pressure. You have to keep it in perspective. One game at a time,
Yeah,
one
well,
possession at a
we'll
time.
see.
Like you've got to really understand that you are on a journey to potentially winning a championship. And Philadelphia has not seen a championship in the
Since
NBA since
1984.
1983 in the Julius Erving, Moses Malone, Maurice Cheek days
Yeah.
of those particular teams. You may recall those players, all of them Hall of Famers. But you've got to take it one game at a time. Understand that you're going to be in a process of putting a team together that is going to need to gel. That is going to take time to gel. To your point, you're going to be in a lot of primetime games. So you're going to have a lot of national exposure, which could be good or bad, depending upon how well you're playing in those showcase games. But one game at a time is the best way to handle the sports related pressure that they'll be under all season long.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch.
It absolutely will. Overall in the NBA, now that free agency is pretty much pending the Kawhi Leonard situation, apparently the investigation into Kawhi Leonard is over with the nonprofit aspiration. So now they're going through what has been found in the investigation, trying to figure out the penalties and that they're going to levy and assess soon enough. So it looks like the investigation is complete. Now it's a matter of figuring out the punishments that should be applied to who, the Clippers, Steve Ballmer, Kawhi Leonard. We'll see what happens, and then that should finalize the trade between the Toronto Raptors and the
LA
Los
Clippers.
Angeles Clippers, where Kawhi Leonard is concerned. So that's a brief update. We're not going to get into that. I want to see exactly what penalties are levied and assessed against all the relevant parties in that situation. But apparently the investigation is complete. But the NBA offseason is basically done. The rosters are set for the most part. Who do you think are the big winners of the offseason in the NBA before we move on to the NFL?
Well, you're going to have to put Philly up there, with getting Jaylen Brown,
Sure.
especially for what they got him for. I think Philly's that harkens back to the pressure that I was just talking about. There's pressure on them right now, like a lot of pressure, and they will be most experts pick to come out of the East. Maybe
Absolutely.
a lot of experts pick to win it all. We haven't even talked about how they might match up against the San Antonio or an Oklahoma City. That's for another day, another time.
I actually have some comments on Oklahoma City in terms of their
Um,
offseason here, but
I think that Miami, had a nice offseason. Um,
yes.
with their draft, I know they lost some players. I think Oklahoma City killed it. I think San Antonio got better. I think that it'll be interesting to see the dynamic in Toronto and Indiana with Halliburton coming back. Um, out west, I like what Minnesota's done. I do like what the Lakers have done. To a certain extent, I think I think the Lakers had a good offseason. I don't think the Lakers knocked it out of the park by any stretch. I think they had a good and they did what they needed to do. Um, I think they gave up a lot to get it. I like Minnesota's offseason. Those are just a few off the top of my head that I think had good off seasons. And the Knicks brought back almost everybody not named Mitchell Robinson. I think the Knicks had a great off season despite trading their draft picks, one to your beloved Lakers, in Carr. I think Leon has done a masterful job again, and they're still going to be able to roll 10 deep going into next year. So I think the Knicks quietly
Philadelphia
had a
next
superb off season.
year. Well, I think Philadelphia, yeah, in terms of winners east to west, Philadelphia in the east, I think Miami has done well. And you know what? Actually, we'll get into maybe teams that are disappointing offseason in a moment, but Philly and Miami in the east. In the west, yes, I like what the Lakers have done. They got the center that they wanted in Walker Kessler, is going to anchor the middle of them for years to come. They obviously got younger, more athletic, and they re-signed Austin Reeves, so they get to retain him and a backcourt with Luka Doncic that will be one of the most offensively dynamic, maybe not the best defensively, but from
Well, that's my
Offensive
question about the
standpoint, one of
Lakers.
the most
Did they
prolific
improve
backcourts in
defensively?
the
That's
NBA.
why. That's why I think the Lakers had a good offseason, but didn't knock it out of the park. I'm not sure how much better the Lakers are going to be defensively. I mean, yes, they'll have a representative center, but other than that, I mean, their backcourt, with Reeves and Doncic, they have two traffic cones back there on defense.
Yeah, they do. They will certainly,
So,
they will certainly try. But some of the other players that the Lakers brought in, like Quinn Grimes and Cam Carr, based on his summer league performance, I
yep.
think if he gets up to snuff and builds up his weight, I think he's a defensive dynamo as well. The Lakers, unfortunately, a lot of times we judge these teams based on guys like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what he's going to do.
Well, yeah.
Cameron Carr has all the makings of a guy that could do it at both ends of the court.
Yep.
So I don't want to automatically assume the Lakers are going to be a bad defensive team. I think they'll be in the upper
Oh,
half
well,
of the league.
I don't
It's
know if
just
they'll be
how
that
far in
bad.
the upper half of the league will they be, and a lot of that will be dependent upon some of the wing players that they brought in, like Quentin Grimes, like Cameron Carr through the draft, and some other players that they brought in as well. So we will see. That's a wait and see, in my opinion. But
Yep.
offensively, they should be very dynamic based on the backcourt alone. And yes, in Minnesota, I would agree with bringing in LaMelo Ball to combine with the Ant Man, and obviously we'll see how the rest of the roster shapes out. But Minnesota, I think upgraded at least at the point guard position to take a little bit of pressure off of Anthony Edwards. So I think they've had a really good offseason as well. Who are the losers or the teams that were underwhelming in this offseason, East to West? Who would you say?
In the East, I think the biggest quote unquote head scratcher is the Boston Celtics. I don't know how anybody can look at Boston and say they got better. I know there was a dynamic or lack thereof between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Mhm.
I don't see this trade for Paul George necessarily as moving the needle forward for the Celtics. I think they really got they didn't do themselves a lot of favors in terms of being able to score. I don't love the Boston Celtics offseason. And for as much as it can be said that, they weren't a real power in the West, I don't like what the Clippers have done. I think the Clippers have taken a massive step backwards because Kawhi did have a very good year last year. I know he's got the injury thing and he's kind of mercurial in a lot of ways. I don't love what the Clippers have done.
I think they had to move on from Kawhi Leonard. I hear what you're saying, but I think they had to move on from Kawhi Leonard. I really, really do. And to kind of start over there because they have a new arena now and the Paul George Kawhi Leonard situation, get into one Western Conference final, and that was Kawhi wasn't even healthy. It was Paul George leading that charge, believe it or not. But I think they had to make that move. We'll see. I mean, ultimately, the trade still has to go through. If it doesn't, Kawhi's going back to the Clippers. It might work itself out, but I think they're doing what they have to do. They're taking a step back to take a step forward later on. So I don't have as big of an issue with that. And Kawhi Leonard being healthy in back-to-back years, highly unlikely. I believe he has a chronic condition in his knee, might have arthritis. It's never been reported, but I got to believe when you keep having knee injuries over and over and over again, there's a chronic condition behind it. And chances are that's going to flare up again, after having a really good year. You're right. But when was the last time he had great back-to-back years? It hasn't really happened since the San Antonio days.
Yep.
For me in the East, Boston, first and foremost, they're not under pressure. There's this thing about teams being under pressure because they're expected to win. That's where you want to be. That's not Boston this upcoming season. No pressure on them. No one expects anything from anybody or anything from them. Even with Jason Tatum in tow and everybody else that they have over there, Peyton Pritchard. We'll see who else might step up for that team. Derek White. Another team in the East that I thought lost was the Detroit Pistons. They bring back Jalen Durham, but you need a second scorer besides Cade Cunningham, and they really haven't addressed that as of yet. So they're kind of in my loser pile for the Eastern
Yep.
Conference.
I agree.
In the Western Conference, you might be surprised by this, but I actually think Oklahoma City lost a little bit. They had a very good draft. But draft picks, you don't know how they're going to turn out. They lost 3 valuable players from their rotation of 10 guys which is kind of their superpower. They could throw 10 guys at you, two different starting fives. Well, three of those guys are gone. Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and now Lou Dort, who was a starter and one of the best defensive players in the game. He didn't have as good a season this season as in the championship season. However, he's still a 3-and-D guy, starting caliber player. You trade him to Atlanta for second-round picks. I don't know how Oklahoma City is going to benefit from. I know Sam Presti is very, very good, but trading Lou Dort for 3 second-round picks, to me, a little bit of a head scratcher if you're, observing Oklahoma City from the outside with Sam Presti and the sterling reputation that he has as a general manager, probably the best in the league right now. But that's kind of a head scratcher to me. That Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, two solid, reliable rotation pieces, gone. Oklahoma City, even though they drafted well, we'll see how those guys turns out. But their depth, not quite as much depth as you've had the last couple of years, which means you're going to need that much more from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, from J-Dub. You're going to need to be healthy this year and playing the vast majority of the games. AJ Mitchell, obviously, and Chet Holmgren, who didn't have a very good NBA Finals. He needs to bulk up a little bit. So there's a little bit more pressure on the star players, on your top 4 or 5 players, to step a little bit more. Alex Caruso as well coming off the bench, who they'll still have. But Oklahoma City, to me, pending to see how these draft picks turn out, sacrificed a little bit of depth to stay under the second apron in terms of the salary cap. So they're not coming in.
Well, that was just it. They were capped out.
And I think that makes them not a lot more vulnerable, but maybe a little bit more vulnerable, depending upon how San Antonio improves coming off their finals experience of this season. And Minnesota as well, and the Lakers also. We'll see what they do this upcoming season. It's going to be very competitive in the West for those top 4 spots.
Well, we have time to sort it all out,
That we do. And speaking of sorting things out, let's continue to sort out the questions that each NFL team needs to answer, as the first preseason game is a week away, I believe, or a week to 10 days away, with the Hall of Fame game in Camden, and one of the more forgettable matchups that we're ever going to see in that particular game. Not that anyone's going to play, but everyone's excited about it anyways. The question each NFL team needs to answer in this 2026 season, we go to the AFC West. We'll start with the Denver Broncos, who won the AFC West last year and got to the conference championship game, lost to the New England Patriots because Bo Nix wasn't available and Jarrett Stidham had to start in his place. We saw how that turned out. What is the question that the Denver Broncos need to answer, Jack, for this 2026 season?
I like Denver's O-line. I think probably their biggest weakness is probably tight end and the effectiveness of Bo Nix. He had an ankle injury, that kept him out of the AFC Championship game. I think they're going to need more from Bo Nix. Now they have Jalen Waddle in the mix.
That should make their passing game a little more down.
Down
the field, especially.
I'm not sure there isn't something going on between Peyton and Bo Nix. They've, kind of sniped at each other this offseason. They still have a good defense, but their biggest weakness, I think, is tight end. Despite having Evan Ingram, I know Evan Ingram very well as a Giants fan.
Got to stay healthy, but he's good what he is.
And when he's not dropping balls.
Well, with a Sean Payton coach team, you would think he would be very, very good at concentrating on catching the ball, because Sean Payton, as a Giants fan, you remember him as the offensive coordinator. He's not going to tolerate stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator many, many moons ago. I mean, he was on the staff that went to the 2000 Super Bowl with against the Ravens.
Yeah, and only scored 7 points, but who is
the biggest question for me for Denver is quarterback play. I think Bo Nix needs to up his game a little bit and be healthy.
Okay. Well, for me, the biggest question is, you kind of alluded to it, are Bo Nix and Sean Payton on the same page? Because if they are, they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year. That is very much within the realm of possibility for the Broncos. But Bo Nix and Sean Payton will have to be on the same page, because ultimately the head coach quarterback combination in the NFL determines a lot of things for each NFL team every single season, based on how the league is set up.
Yep.
Let us move to the let's move to the Kansas City Chiefs. Didn't make the playoffs last year. Patrick Mahomes getting hurt, trying to rebuild the offensive line. They bring in Johnny Walker III, the MVP of the Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks. He is now a Kansas City Chief. And you trade away Trent McDuffie to the Rams. And you have Travis Kelce coming back, who's on the back nine of his career, as you might say. What is the question that the Kansas City Chiefs need to answer coming into the 2026 season?
Offensive tackle. I don't love their tackle.
Taylor, I think, is out of there. So
what's that?
Jawan Taylor, I think, is out of there. One of their tackles. So who's replacing?
Well, no, I mean they gave him that $80 million deal and it didn't work out. They now going to have to turn to guys like Jalen Moore, Josh Simmons was okay at towards the end of the year, but they were 31st in run blocking win rate last year. 31st. So, given Mahomes is coming back from an ACL injury, how well can they keep Mahomes upright? How well can they make it so Mahomes can scramble if he needs to? That's number one. I don't love their offensive tackles. Number two, how healthy is Patrick Mahomes, and when is he coming back? And when he does come back, what percentage of Patrick Mahomes are we getting? If they have to, start Justin Fields at quarterback, I don't know that that's a winning formula for Kansas City. So I have questions about Kansas City.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine at center. They have Creed Humphreys, one of the best in the game. Trey Smith at right guard. I love them in the middle. You have Jalen Moore at right tackle. I think he's pretty good. Obviously, you're going to need Patrick Mahomes' blind side to be well protected on the left side. So we'll see what happens with that. They're bringing Kingsley Suamataia through the draft, who has a lot of potential, but we'll see how quickly it comes through. Fortunately, Andy Reid is one of the better head coaches at developing offensive linemen because he was an offensive lineman himself. So we'll see how he comes along. And
Yep.
And then they have CJ Hansen also over there for depth. The question that I have is that how much productivity are you going to get from the receiving corps? Core. Racey Rice is their best player, but he's had some legal problems this offseason.
Yep.
Xavier Worthy, since he was drafted, has not done what they need him to do. He hasn't fulfilled that Tyreek Hill role that he was brought in for. And then you have Tyquan Thornton, who's coming in, to add some depth to the receiving core. But you also have Travis Kelce on the back down of his career. You'd like to see him to return to some form of dominance as a guy who was the best tight end in the league for several seasons.
He's not going to be anywhere near that this year.
In 4 years. Well, there you go. Then who else is going to step up in that particular slot? But that's my question for the Kansas City Chiefs.
They're going to have to run the ball a lot more.
Yeah.
They're going to have to depend on Kenneth Walker and DeMercado, to run the ball. And do they have the offensive line to do that?
And Andy Reid is a guy who will abandon the running game. He doesn't run it as much, so I assume that's going to continue. Like, he's going to pass it much more than he's going to run it, even though, if you want to protect Patrick Mahomes, run the football more. That would be a great way to protect him while you see how the offensive line comes together. But like I said, the big question for me is, assuming Andy Reid is passing more than he's running, which is his history, which is his reputation as a head coach, how much productivity are you going to get from the receiving core? And to be honest with you,
how do you like switching sides of the ball to their defense? They did lose a lot in the defensive backfield. They drafted arguably the top corner in the draft in Delaney, and they have L'Jarius Sneed. How do you like their defensive backfield with Gilman and Connor at the safety positions?
I like it, but not as much as I liked it when they had Trent McDuffie back there, along with Jones. I forget what his name. I think he went to the Rams as well, actually.
Yes,
so,
they both went to the Rams.
The starting, and those guys together were pretty good. But literally, the starting primary defensive backs, cornerbacks for the Chiefs are now starting for the Rams over there at SoFi Stadium. So, but L'Jarius Sneed, bringing him back is a good thing. He's a little bit older, but he's very experienced. He's pretty good. And you mentioned Delaney over there, getting hit at number 9 in the draft this past season, who I believe was the best defensive back available in the draft, at least this side of Caleb Downs as a safety going to the Cowboys, you may recall. So I think they have the potential to be very good. But here's the thing. Forget all that. You need Chris Jones on the defensive line to be as dominant as he normally is. He didn't have a very good year last year either for the Chiefs. So you've got to get pressure on the quarterback because Steve Spagnuolo, an old friend of yours, when he was defensive coordinator of the Giants before he went over to the Rams to be a head coach and then ended up in Kansas City as a defensive coordinator, maybe the best defensive coordinator in the league this side of Brian Flores in Minnesota. You got to get pressure on the quarterbacks, especially in the division that you are playing in. So to me, how good the secondary for Kansas City is going to be dependent upon how good they are with the pass rush. And Chris Jones is going to have to be right in the middle of that.
And you're going to need Karlaftis to come off the edge.
Karlaftis as well, yeah. It was and Nick Bolden, who's an awesome linebacker defending against the run. They still have him, although he's not getting any younger. But yeah, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, and at least one other person. We'll see who that person is. They've got to get pressure on the quarterback. To me, that is not something they were very strong in last season. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. So honestly, I see Kansas City as ceiling 10-win team. Ceiling.
Could they get if Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and they get the defense that really carried those back-to-back Super Bowls was more about the defense than the offense. I think I'd have to check this, but I think Patrick Mahomes' passing numbers the last 3-4 years have progressively gone down. And they ask him to do a lot. He runs the football a lot too. You hope that's not the case. Aside from the offensive line coming together and running the football more than Andy Reid typically does in a game, forces Patrick Mahomes, lessens how much Patrick Mahomes is going to have to create yards with his legs and all the improvisation that he does. He does better than anybody when the pocket breaks and he has to create a play. But you hope that's not really the case this year. So less reliance on Patrick Mahomes in the running game will go a long way to keeping him upright as well. But if he's right and the offense is right and the defense is decent, can they get to the Super Bowl out of the loaded AFC?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go over to the Chargers. We'll let you kick it off. What do you think about the Chargers?
Well, you heard my little closing rant on Justin Herbert and all the, doesn't have a playoff win. No, they don't have a playoff win with him as starting quarterback. It's all about the offensive line. I mean, let's face it. It's all about their health. If they're healthy, especially the offensive line, I see no reason why the Chargers can't contend for the AFC West. So the question I have is that will the Chargers overcome the curse of bad health that they have been seemingly under for seasons now?
Yeah. And that's assuming, I think you hit the nail on the head. Are Slater and Alt, healthy? They got a little bit of
a team that won 11 games last year.
Yeah.
I think that's very impressive. They're not getting enough credit for what they did last year, missing 2 of the best offensive tackles in football.
I don't know if, Cole Strange and Jake Slaughter, who was a second round draft pick, how well are they going to do at guard? So I do have a question about their interior offensive line, and a question about their offensive tackles' health. So that to me would
be healthy. They ought to be rested and they ought to be raring to go because you miss a whole year. That's a lot of time to think. That's a lot of time to get really juiced up.
And then they need some more production out of their tight end. Charlie Culler did not have a great year last year. He didn't even have a pedestrian
because you had an offensive line that they had to makeshift.
Yeah, well, they need some more production out of Culler in the tight end.
Sure. And they could absolutely get it. The way offenses run these days is very tight end friendly. Just about any tight end could be a star in an offense if you focus on that. Now that aren't guys that are true stars like a Kelsey or a George Kittle guys of that ilk. But it's if you have a Tucker Kraft, for Green Bay, and they're going to need him to come back healthy. They could have used him last year after he got banged up with the Green Bay Packers, and of course Micah Parsons. But we'll get into the NFC North teams eventually, including Green Bay. But the way offenses work in the NFL, they're very tight end friendly. So there's no reason you can't get productivity out of that spot if the foundation is strong and healthy, meaning the offensive line.
Yeah, well, the key to their season is really Slater and Alt. That's going to be the difference. I mean, between just making the playoffs and actually advancing.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally agree. Let's go to a team that could be a sleeper team, if you will. A team you don't expect much from, but could end up, there's a worst and first story in the NFL every single year. Could this team be it? The Las Vegas Raiders in the Clint Kubiak, Fernando Mendoza era has officially begun, but a lot of talk about who's going to be starting quarterback. So what question do the Las Vegas Raiders have to answer for this 2026 season?
their interior defensive line, I don't love it. They have all three linemen coming back, but Butler, Laulu, and Booker,
they have Max Crosby coming back, so
Max Crosby,
that's probably going to help.
I don't love their interior defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest question for them. I'm assuming Cousins is going to start at quarterback, at least to begin the year.
Yeah.
Behind Tyler Linderbaum. That's at least what I would think. But they have Genty coming back.
They're going to need a lot more out of Genty, and of course Brock Bowers, who is one of the best tight ends of the game when he's healthy.
Yep.
But go ahead.
Yep. And I don't love the right side of the line either. With Powers, Johnson, and Glaze on the right side, I don't know how great that is. So especially for a rookie quarterback, and Mendoza eventually will take the starter's job, a la Jackson Dart last year. But when that is, we don't know. But eventually, this will be Mendoza's team.
Yeah, that's the question that I have: is that when does Fernando Mendoza, become the full-time starter? Because it's going to be Kirk Cousins at first, which I think makes sense. And I hear a lot of guys talking on the radio. Well, when are you going to start it? You drafted number 1 overall. You got to start him. It's like, can I remind people that Patrick Mahomes sat first season when he was drafted at number 10 by the Chiefs? Can I remind you that Aaron Rodgers drafted at number 24 by the Packers? Sat for 3 years before.
Jordan Love sat.
I remind you, Jordan Love at number 25.
Sat for 2 years, I think.
I don't appreciate these pundits on the radio not pointing this stuff out when they make this argument. They're looking for the story. Like, it's a better story when the rookie quarterback starts over a guy like Kirk Cousins. We know who he is, but these guys got to tell the truth. It is not unprecedented for a number 1 overall pick or a first-round pick as a quarterback to not start in his first season. That said, the question I have is, when will Fernando Mendoza be the full-time starter? I have a feeling his first season in the NFL is not going to go by without him starting some games, I suspect. But we will certainly find out. But there's nothing wrong, given the offensive line that you talked about, the receiving core as well, outside of Brock Bowers, who's going to be the go-to wide receivers, because you can't throw to Brock Bowers on every play. You can't hand it off to Ashton Genty on every play. So who else is going to make things happen?
Trey Tucker
down the field.
Jalen Naylor, Yeah.
Well, they traded Jacoby Myers last year, who was their best wide receiver.
Yep.
So, who's going to be the guy that steps in to fulfill that role as the WR1, aside from what they hope to get from Genty and what they expect to get from Bowers if he's healthy. So that's the question. But patience with quarterbacks is not unprecedented. So the guys that are worried about, Fernando Mendoza should start now as his number 1 overall pick.
No, he shouldn't.
That is not good math. That is not actual. That is dependent upon the team around them. Football, again, this whole, the quarterback is responsible for everything on the team. They're not. They can't be. They can only do so much. I don't care if they handle the ball. The ball eventually gets handled by other people, and there's people that protect the ball and maximize the ball being able to go where it needs to go. I don't appreciate that kind of commentary when I hear that from people that are supposed to be in the know about this stuff. So,
The biggest jump that almost every NFL football player will tell you between college and the pros is the speed of the game. And that's doubly important at
well,
the
also
quarterback
the
position.
physicality. I would
You
think the
know,
physicality also.
let Mendoza sit, whether that's 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. Let him get used to being an NFL player. Let him get used to the grind week over week over week. Let him get used to the preparation. Say what you want about Cousins, but he's had some success. He's had success in this league for a fourth round
Sure,
pick.
absolutely.
He's
probably made more money than he should have been allowed to make, but he is more than a serviceable quarterback during his career.
Let him learn behind Kirk Cousins. Let him learn how to be a pro. Let him learn the speed of the game and see the speed of the game. You can always bring him in mop up time, whether you're getting blown out or you're the one blowing somebody else out. I think at some point he does become the starter this season.
I would agree.
In a perfect world, you probably wouldn't want him to become the starter until week 12, 13, 14. Let him get a couple games under his belt so he's ready to roll for next year. But let's face it, Las Vegas is not going to the playoffs this year. They're not. They've made some improvements. Yes. They have some pieces in place. Yes. But they're not a playoff team this year. They're probably not going to win more than 5 games, to be honest with you. Let Mendoza not get killed back there, especially behind an offensive line that I'm not the biggest believer in, especially on the right side, where you break this kid's confidence. Let him learn how to be a pro. Later in the year, let him come in, take the starting job, so you're ready to roll next year with Mendoza out of the chute.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It'll certainly be very, very interesting to watch. And Clint Kubiak as a head coach, not a very talkative guy, kind of leads by example. So, how motivated will this team be under the leadership of Clint Kubiak? That's also be something to watch. One of the rookie head coaches that we have here in the NFL, and someone who's going to be watched a lot for not only how he innovates the Raiders offense based on what he did with the Seahawks and Sam Darnold and company, but also how that translates to the Raiders offense, but to the team overall as head coach.
Yeah.
So a lot of intrigue and a lot of excitement surrounding the Las Vegas Raiders. And the AFC West as a whole, I think, is going to be one of the more rugged and compelling divisions to watch through this entire NFL season. Let's go to the AFC North for a moment. I think we could squeeze that in. Starting with who won the division there last year? It wasn't Baltimore, I think. Was it Pittsburgh? Cincinnati. So
it wasn't. It must have been Pittsburgh.
yeah, I think so. I guess we'll start with them. Aaron Rodgers in his final year, he has stated this will be his final season. Mike McCarthy coming in, an old friend. I find this ironic. By the way, a little stat of the week for you. The very last time the Pittsburgh Steelers made a Super Bowl, their second one under Mike Tomlin, was against Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy for the Green Bay Packers, who won that game. So the very battery head coach quarterback combination battery that defeated the Steelers in the last Super Bowl appearance are now the head coach and starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a little bit of full circle symmetry there, if you will. But what is the question that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to answer this season?
I don't love their inside linebacker, their off-ball inside linebackers, Queen and Peyton Wilson. I don't love them. They were 27th in run stopping last year. For as much as I like their edge rushers with Highsmith and Watt, I don't love their off-ball linebackers. I think you definitely need that in this league, especially if you have designs on stopping the run. I think really that will tell the story of Pittsburgh's season.
Well, the question that I have is that can they get into the playoffs and win a game? Hasn't happened very often in the last 9, 10 years. So there's the question right there. Can they get into the playoffs and win at least one game and get to the divisional round? I don't expect them to contend for the Super Bowl in the AFC, but can they get a win in the playoffs once they get there?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yep.
Let us go to the Baltimore Ravens under rookie head coach Jesse Minter because John Harbaugh went up the Atlantic to your New York Giants. So Jesse Minter comes in. Lamar Jackson is back. What is the question that the Baltimore Ravens need to answer in this 2026 season?
They lost a lot of players on their interior offensive line, starting with
Oh,
Linderbaum.
Lindenbaum. Yeah.
You know,
He's a Raider.
yep.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna be depending heavily on their first round pick Vega Ioane out of Penn State
Yep.
To cover there. But until I see what they have at I mean, Danny Pinter is going to be their starting center. Do we love that? And their guards are John Simpson and Vega Ioane. Look, Ioane is a rookie. He's projected to be a very good pro, maybe an all pro one day. I want to see how that holds up for Baltimore. You do have Lamar. But other than Zay Flowers, I mean, are you really counting on Rashad Bateman and Jacoby Lane as your other wide receivers? You lost depth at tight end, and now you have Mark Andrews, who's very good, but you don't have Likely there anymore. They lost a lot, and they were kind of put behind the eight ball because they thought they had Max Crosby. They didn't end up having as much depth as they thought they did. They I don't want to say settled, but they settled for Trey Hendrickson as opposed to Max Crosby. I think the defense will be fine, especially with their head coach like Minter. I'm curious to see how Lamar holds up with this interior offensive line. Their defense, led by Kyle Hamilton, will be a huge strength. But their interior offensive line, tight end behind Andrews, and wide receiver behind Flowers, unless you're a big believer in Rashad Bateman, we'll see. I think are the big questions offensively. I think all the questions for Baltimore for me lie on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because the question that I have is that how much impact will offensive coordinator Declan Doyle have on the Ravens offense? He worked with Caleb Williams in Chicago last season. You saw the season that Caleb Williams had. I think Declan Doyle potentially can modernize and really bring out another level of offense for the Ravens offense ultimately, and Lamar Jackson as well. So, how will Declan Doyle innovate and open up this Ravens offense? Is a question I have coming into this season. I think the potential is there for that based on the work he did with Caleb Williams in Chicago last year.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting, and how much of that was Doyle and how much of that was Ben Johnson, with the Chicago offense.
That's a fair question. We're still going to find out, aren't we? But then
So
he also learned from Ben Johnson as well and could take that knowledge to being offensive coordinator. So either way, it's not just one guy usually. It's one guy learning from another. And you'd have to say Declan Doyle had something to do last year with what happened with Caleb Williams and the Bears, as much as Ben Johnson maybe, but also Declan Doyle got to learn from Ben Johnson. So I think Baltimore's offense, assuming Lamar Jackson's health, should be better, a little bit more dynamic than it's been, so that maybe after Zay Flowers, a guy like Rashad Bateman can have more of an impact. They lost Isaiah Likely in free agency, which I didn't like. I would have kept him instead of Mark Andrews, actually, but they lost him. So Mark Andrews,
now he's Jackson Dart's buddy up in New Jersey.
And who's going to come in, to be the Isaiah Likely guy. So I didn't like that, but I think their offense has a chance to be more dynamic this season under Declan Doyle.
Cincinnati. What questions face Cincinnati?
Will the defense be good enough to allow Joe Burrow and the offense to do what we know they're going to do, assuming Joe Burrow stays healthy this season?
Yep.
Well, Sexy Dexy coming in, potential impact player. You know what he's capable of as a New York Giant. He's going to be hungry. He's going to be mad. He should have plenty of motivation to go out there and kill it for Cincinnati this season. So that's the question. Does the defense improve enough to allow the Cincinnati Bengals, led by Joe Burrow, health dependent, possibly get into the playoffs and make a deep run?
Well, that's just it. I mean, I don't think we have many questions, exception of the left side of the line with Orlando Brown Jr. and Dylan Fairchild ranked towards the bottom of the league.
They'll need improvement there.
I don't
to be very nice
I don't,
about it.
getting
You have two bodies there. Those
Dexter
bodies should move
Lawrence
and they should do things, right? Like
was a big name. Which Dexter Lawrence is coming in? Dexter Lawrence had a miserable season last year.
I know.
Yes, he's going to command double teams.
That doesn't mean he's going to have a miserable season this season.
It doesn't, but have you seen Dexter Lawrence?
I think he should have actually.
He's enormous, and another former Giant, B.J. Hill, is in there with him. I don't like their linebackers. I don't like Barrett Carter. I don't like Knight Jr. And then they have Oren Burks. I don't love their off-ball linebacker. All three of those guys were not good at all last year. Most guys that played defense for Cincinnati weren't good at all last year. I don't love their off-ball linebackers either. So the defense is the big question.
On the defense. It's all going to be on the defense. A decent defense, top 15, a healthy Joe Burrow, look out in the playoffs. But that's a big if. We'll see, because there's only so much that Dexter Lawrence is going to be able to do from his position.
Well, not only that, he's an interior defensive tackle. He's going to command double teams. We know that, but even if he's back to 80% of what he used to be, is that enough for Cincinnati?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. Trey Hendrickson is no longer there either, so there's that to account for as well. A guy that for 2 years had more sacks than anybody at one point when they gave him a raise as opposed to a contract extension. But that's Mike Brown, Cincinnati Bengals. We shall see. The Cleveland Browns bringing up the rear in the AFC North. What question do they have to answer this season?
Who's the starting quarterback? I think that's pretty simple. The projected starter is going to be Deshaun Watson. What is Deshaun Watson these days? He's not Houston's Deshaun Watson anymore. And he hasn't played really in 2 years. So quarterback is there, and who's he being backed up by? Shador? Dylan Gabriel?
Hey, Shador
Taylor Green might challenge. Taylor Green is young, but he's moldable. I do like Taylor Green in the mix, but I don't like the Browns quarterbacks at all. And how much patience?
Shador was a Pro Bowler last year. Mind you, he had to go through a bunch of quarterbacks to get him onto the roster. But still, being a Pro Bowler is no joke if you're a Sanders.
Yes, it is.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
It's a complete punchline.
I need to crack a funny there, like I might crack an egg into a bowl to fry it up in the morning. Well, the question I have is that Deshaun Watson will be the starter. Will Deshaun Watson make the Browns only somewhat regret the big deal that they offered him after they traded for him from Houston? That's the question that I have. And if he does, by the way, and he could, we'll see. I wouldn't bet on it, but there's a lot of things that happen in the NFL that no one bets on. Don't confuse betting on something with a guarantee of it happening. That's why it's called betting. But if Deshaun Watson is able to be somewhat of what he was in Houston, not a bad situation for the Browns. And actually another question, I'll add two questions. How does Jared Verse go about leading a defense that used to have Myles Garrett? The defense, I imagine, will be fine with Jared Verse and Denzel Ward in the secondary, but the Myles Garrett dynamic of it with Jared Verse coming in after the big trade is also going to be something to watch. Mostly Deshaun Watson figuring to be the starter. Will he be the Deshaun Watson he was in Houston, allowing Cleveland to only somewhat regret the contract that they gave him?
I think, obviously, when you lose a player of Garrett's caliber, that hurts. Verse is a very nice, he's not Myles Garrett, but he's a very good player, and he's young. You
They can build
know,
around him. Yeah. So I think
and
defensively they'll be okay.
they have two very good young defensive tackles in Mason Graham and Schlesinger.
That's right.
In the they have Denzel Ward, on the back end.
Yeah.
I think their defense is going to be decent. I don't think it's going to be elite, but I think they're going to have a decent defense.
I would agree.
Um, I mean, yeah, will they take a small step back because of Garrett? Yes, but they got a player back with Verse. Um, so I think their front seven is the strength of this team. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, losing Garrett will hurt. Again, this is also a team like Las Vegas. This is not the year for them. Um,
No.
when your starting wide receivers are
I'm not
all with
disappointed.
Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston, two of your three starting wide receivers, they don't know anything yet about running professional
Yeah,
routes, about getting separation, and then who the hell's throwing the ball to them anyway?
no, I would agree. I think offensively, especially bringing in Todd Monken, first time head coach as offensive coordinator of the Ravens, uh, Cleveland. So there's going to be a lot on him in terms of his offensive genius. Now he's the head coach of the Browns. Kind of questionable when they could have hired Jim Schwartz. We saw what happened with that situation. It will be coordinating the defense for the Browns, but ultimately Tom Monken is going to be the
Yeah.
guy charged with bringing the Cleveland Browns offense to some level of respectability as they go forward.
Well,
So,
much like other teams, not named Las Vegas, whether you're talking about the Jets, the Dolphins, the Browns, it might not be, and hell, maybe even the Steelers as well to a lesser degree. These teams need franchise quarterbacks. Maybe it'll be a good thing if the Browns win 4 games this year. It's supposed to be a very deep quarterback draft. They need a guy because right now they don't have a guy. Deshaun or not, and Shadur Sanders in the games he threw um, 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Worst completion percentage in the league at 57%. Um, it might not be a bad thing if Cleveland is a 3 or 4 win team this year. Might
yeah,
be a good go. Obviously, no team goes into a season
they might
wanting to
draft a
do that.
quarterback next year. The thing about that is, Jack, is that even if they win, say 5, 6, 7 games, they could still get a good quarterback in next
Yeah,
year's draft. It is a deep quarterback draft, which means you might be able to get someone in the mid to late first round. I don't think the Browns are going to be a playoff team, therefore they're going to have a top 15 pick theoretically. They can get their quarterback of the future, and I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to go, unless Deshaun Watson just blows them out of the water this year in terms of his play and productivity. So I
yep,
think Cleveland is actually in a pretty good situation right now. They just gotta weather this season and see what they have in Watson.
yeah. Well, I think I think I know the answer to that. Not much.
Yeah,
So
we'll certainly find out. Uh, Sleeper teams in each conference. A team not much is expected of, but who's had a decent offseason. That could be one of those worst to first stories that we see every single year in the NFL. In the AFC, who do you think that team is?
huh. In the AFC,
Yeah.
hmm. I'll start with the NFC, and I'm going to be a homer here. I think the NFC, I think, is the New York Giants. I think the New York Giants have an elite front seven. I think Jackson Dart now having some weapons around him. Leak Neighbors seems to be on track to be there for week one, or at least very close to it. You bring in guys like Likely, and you brought in a bunch of other, wide receivers. I don't know if any of them will make the team. I mean, I think Calvin Austin will, but and Mooney will. But you have OBJ, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, a lot of guys there. Um, I think, and now they have a head coach and a coaching staff. So I think the Giants are almost far and away the team that might surprise a lot of people this year um, in the NFC. The AFC, wow. the AFC is so top heavy that I'll let you feel the AFC first. You know, no one really stands out to me as a worst to first candidate in the AFC. Um, it's not going to be Las Vegas. It's not going to be Cleveland. Um, it's not going to be the Jets. You know what? I'm going to say the Jets. If they get any kind of quarterback play, if you can keep themselves, you know, I'm not talking about worst to first, but they do have talent. I will say the New York Jets in the AFC. They might be
Yeah,
better than people are expecting.
it could be.
And
I don't know
and
about
I'm
for
talking about a ceiling of 7, 8 wins, but that's a massive step forward for the Jets if they could do something like that.
yeah. For me in the AFC, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
I like the Robert Saleh, Brian Dable battery of head coach, offensive coordinator. Robert Saleh obviously is great defensively, and he wasn't a bad head coach with the Jets. Again, you said he got fired because he couldn't get along with Aaron Rodgers, even though they were 3-2 at the time that they canned him. He can be a good head coach, and I'm rooting for him as well as a 49er fan. I want him to do well. I'd rather him stay with the 49ers, mind you, but I'm rooting for him. But that's ultimately why he might do well is because I'm rooting for him, is because I think he can coach. The defense will come around. They did draft Carnell Tate and Keldrick Falk in the first round as a wide receiver, giving Cam Ward another target, another edge rusher to play along Jonathan Simmons on the defense. Then you bring in guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, who has wide receiver depth, good for Cam Ward. John Franklin Myers as a defensive lineman. So I think Tennessee's defense is going to be strong, particularly with Saleh, at the helm of that. And Brian Dable can run the offense alongside to do what he does best. They also have Mitchell Trubisky as a backup quarterback, which I think is a very, very good thing for Cam Ward. Also, learning from a wily NFL veteran like Mitchell Trubisky, who's had some success in the NFL, particularly with Chicago. So, overall, if there's going to be a worst to first story in the AFC, I think the Titans are a prime candidate for that based on the combination of head coach, offensive coordinator, the draft that they had, and bringing in some very nice free agents.
Yep. Okay. And what about in the NFC?
In the NFC, I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints. They
Okay.
draft Jordan Tyson in the first round. I know he's not always healthy, but if he's healthy, he's a game breaker on the field. That is definitely very good for Tyler Shuck. And then they bring in Oscar Delp as a tight end in round 3. In terms of free agency, bring in Travis Etienne Jr. from the Jacksonville Jaguars, adding into Alvin Kamara, will hopefully have a healthy season this year. So he and Etienne can make a very productive backfield for the New Orleans Saints. Noah Fant comes in on a two-way contract as well. So they added some weapons for Tyler Shuck. And they also, by way of the draft and in free agency, I like their defense already. And I like the fact that playing in the NFC South, potentially, when it comes to a worst to first story, they could easily win that division potentially because I'm not so sure about the other teams, even though I think Carolina will be good. I'm not sure about Atlanta. I'm not sure about Tampa Bay post Mike Evans. We'll see what happens with that particular team. But the NFC South is wide open. And I think the Saints, who showed some signs last year, can be the worst and first team in the NFC this season.
Eventually, yeah. Absolutely.
All right, let us go ahead and go talk about the World Cup for a moment here. Who was your player of the tournament, or the player that you thought was the most interesting to watch, the most exciting?
I kind of foreshadowed this over the last several weeks. I'm going unequivocally. I know that they lost to England and did not advance past the, what was it, quarterfinals, I think it was. Was it in the quarterfinals or yeah, because it,
Yeah, I think they got to the round of 8.
yeah. Um, it's Erling Haaland from Norway. I think he's ingratiated himself to the world. He's an elite player. He's huge. He's got personality. Um, he could be a superstar wherever he plays in this world. He plays for Man City in the Premier League, but Erling Haaland, I think, is just a budding. He's one of those transcendent players that could make soccer more mainstream in this country because he's a very easy guy to root for, and he's
He looks
terrific.
like a Marvel. He looks like a Marvel
He
character.
does.
You put him on the screen right
You
away, and
know,
it would totally work.
he's got
Because of his look and
superhero
his name.
vibes.
Yeah.
But Erling Haaland, God, if he were to ever play in the United States, I mean, soccer would
Probably will
really.
eventually. It's just a matter of
Well,
when.
yeah, but most of these guys play on the back
All the
nine.
superstars come
I
over
mean,
here. It's just
Messi
they
plays
know
in
how to do both.
Miami. You had, he's clearly as great of a World
David
Cup as he
Beckham
had.
with the Galaxy many years ago.
Beckham went to LA, and you'll see guys do that. I mean, you even had, and this has been happening for Thierry Henry from France came over to play in the United States
Right.
for MLS, but they do that as kind of their swan song. But Erling Haaland, I think, is an easy guy to root for. I'm not a big soccer guy, but if I ever am bored one Saturday morning and see Manchester City playing, you know what? I might turn it on for 5 or 10 minutes and see what I see with Erling Haaland. I think it's him unequivocally for me.
I would agree with you, except I'm going to go a little bit different here. A guy who impressed me, particularly later on in the tournament, as England went to the final, or England went to the semifinal before losing to Argentina, and that's Jude Bellingham of England.
England, yep.
Yes, great attacker, very charismatic, mixes it up, talk a little bit of trash with Lionel Messi in that semifinal round. So I think like Holland, he's a presence, he's an attacker, he's big, he's charismatic, he's talented. He was my favorite player of all the players that I watched in this particular tournament, although I might have gone with Holland had you not mentioned him. I'm going with Bellingham. I think Bellingham brought everything to the table you want: talent, productivity on the field, some personality, and a little bit of a good
What club
nature,
does he play
trash
for? Do you
talking
know?
on the field with guys like Lionel Messi.
I'm sure he plays in the EPL somewhere. I don't follow soccer near. Who does he play for?
That I don't know,
I
actually.
know Holland plays for City.
No, you're right. He does. He does. I'm not quite sure who
Does he
Bellingham plays for.
does he play for Arsenal or Chelsea or one of the London teams?
Real Madrid.
Oh, he doesn't even play. Okay.
Yep. There's a good
So
one.
he plays in La Liga.
Real Madrid, Man City, La Liga versus EPL, two of the best leagues in the world, along with Bundesliga, which is the German league. But yeah,
German.
he's with Real Madrid. Not bad.
No.
Plays with Ronaldo. And you wonder, by the way, just one other question. Ronaldo, not the greatest World Cup player. Messi was amazing. Now the leading scorer all time in World Cup play, passing Pele, if I remember correctly. Do you think it's the end of the line for both those players?
Yeah, I think Messi will play another year or two in Miami and then just go on to, live his life in luxury between Argentina and Florida or wherever he ends up calling home.
Yeah.
Um, Ronaldo, he doesn't play in the US yet, does he? Because if he doesn't, I think that's his next and final stop to some team in MLS. Um, Ronaldo's what? Isn't Ronaldo like 40 or 41?
41.
Yeah. So
Messi's 39. So are we saying that no more World Cups for Messi and Ronaldo?
well, Ronaldo's already said this is his last World Cup, and I'd be shocked if Messi came
There
back
you
and
go.
played another World
So
Cup.
Portugal has got to pick up for him eventually. So we'll see about Messi. I would agree with you. I'll play a couple more years in Miami, but I don't know unless it's ceremonial that he plays, 4 years from now in the World Cup of 2030 for Argentina. But I'd have to guess no more World Cups for him unless it's something very
And
symbolic.
Ronaldo's already out. So and Messi, like I said, I mean, he's going to be 43 years old by the time the next Men's World Cup rolls around.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Major League Baseball trade deadline fast approaching here. It'll be a week from this Monday, a week from tomorrow, actually, on August 3rd.
August 3rd. Yep.
Big name that everyone's waiting on is Tarik Skubal. Right now, the Detroit Tigers are approaching being able to get a wild card in the American League as they played much better of late. I think they're about 3 games out right now. But a
Yep.
lot of teams are interested in Tarik Skubal. The Yankees are interested in him. The Dodgers are interested in him. So are the Milwaukee Brewers, combining him with Jacob Mizorowski, which would be amazing if that were to happen for the Brewers. So the question is, Tarik Skubal has expressed he'd like to stay in Detroit. If that's the case, does Tarik Skubal stay or go by the trade deadline?
I think Tarik Skubal is available. I think they're going to have to be bowled over to trade him. I don't think the Yankees are a serious player in this, only because I think the Yankees are much more heavily focused on Mason Miller or the Padres. To get that closer role, you shift Bednar to the eighth inning, who's been terrific over the past month or so, Bednar. But
Yeah, yeah.
I if Skubal isn't a Dodger, he's a Tiger. And I think the Dodgers will have to pay heavily for Skubal. And they
They
may do
have
it because
they have
Otani's done
nine of
for
the
the year in
top.
terms of pitching.
Yeah. Well, the Dodgers have plenty of prospects that they could give away. Nine of the top prospects in the top 100, I believe, in Major League Baseball, scouting America. So they're the one team that if Detroit is looking to get blown away, the Dodgers are the one team that could do that.
And they're a National League team. They don't have to face
To
them
go to
other than
the
once a
World
year.
Series.
I think if he gets traded, he's going to the Dodgers, and I think the Dodgers will have to pay a hefty price to get him. Obviously,
What
other than that, I don't think they trade him.
I'm kind of leaning towards that they don't trade him since they have. You're talking about a potential work stoppage in Major League Baseball. It's kind of a motivation to go all in, and then go from there. But of course, the risk you're running is that, like Shohei Ohtani leaving the Angels to go to the Dodgers, what if you could get something for him? So if the Dodgers really want Skubal, I think Detroit is ultimately going to have to take it because if, but at the same time, Tarik Skubal said he wants to stay in Detroit. You know what I do if I'm Detroit?
Yep.
I offer him a big deal right now. If he, and I know we don't know how the collective bargaining agreement is going to be, but we know how it is right now. There is a collective bargaining agreement in place right now. If Tarik Skubal wants to stay with the Tigers, why not Detroit say, okay, here's your offer.
Yep.
Take it or leave it. Why not do that if he's already expressed a desire to stay, which he has? Why wait? Why take the chance? Say, okay, test it out. Let's find out. Because if they offer him something and it goes public, and Tarik Skubal says no, it's on the Tarik Skubal. Detroit says, well, we did everything we could. He wanted to stay. We offered him a good deal. He didn't take it. Wants to test free agency. That means he's saying one thing and doing another, talking out of both sides of his mouth, so to speak. So if he really wants to stay, why doesn't Detroit offer him a big deal before the season ends?
Well, every player, if they're smart, is going to say, "I want to stay where I am." That's just good business. You don't say, "Yeah, I'd really like to be traded." You see that in the NBA, and occasionally, more and more in the NFL. But I don't know Tarik Skubal's mindset. Is he happy with a small market, relatively small market in Detroit, or does he want to be a big market guy, go to LA, Chicago, New York, um,
I don't know, but I think
and be
Detroit
on the
should
big
offer him a
stage?
deal and test whether he wants to stay or not, and just try to just make the commitment to him and test if Tarik Skubal is really if he's doing good business, as you said, if he's really serious.
Let's
I
circle
think
back
that's
to
the
our. Let's
equalizer.
circle back to let you and I are both, and we both said this, Yankee fans. Do you want to see the Yankees trade for Tarik Skubal?
No,
No, neither
not
do I.
really. Not really. I think we have. I think we have enough. I mean, if you could trade for Mason Miller, I don't know if our bullpen needs help either. But if you could trade for Mason Miller, so be it. Do it because that will stabilize your bullpen.
He's the best
Give you
closer in the
two
league.
great guys in the eighth inning and the ninth inning, and Bednar and Mason Miller. But really, the Yankees need to focus on because unfortunately, how many batters or how many pitchers lead the league in batting average, home runs, and RBIs? The Yankees need guys that hit for average. The
Yeah,
Yankees need guys that
and
put the
Bellinger might be
ball
hurt. He hurt his
in
hammy
play, and
last
they
night,
don't have enough of those guys right now. So
and
no,
now
not
Bellinger
to
might be
screw
out.
ball. Use that to get guys in that are going to have an impact as everyday players offensively. Because so many Yankee games that I see these days, they get off to slow starts offensively. If you have a really good pitching staff that the Yankees do, and you get off to faster starts offensively, that's where you have an advantage.
And let's face it, the Yankee. Look, taking nothing away from Tarik Skubal, the Yankees might have the top three pitchers in terms of a 1-2-3 combo in the
Sure.
playoffs with
Yeah.
Schlittler, Cole, and Freed.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's right.
you know,
But
yeah,
where's Freed, by the
Skubal.
way? Is he
Freed is
coming
back.
back? I mean,
Freed is back.
yeah.
Freed is back, but
Okay.
we need a catcher. We need a left side
Shortstop.
of the infield. We,
Shortstop, catcher.
you
I'd
know,
say shortstop, catcher, then third base.
so
Then
it'll be a very interesting week for the Yankees.
oh, yeah.
They need bats and Mason Miller. If they can get two or three, if they can get a catcher, Mason Miller, and I'd say two or three
Shortstop.
bats, I think it's a successful trade deadline for the Yankees.
Yeah, if they get Mason Miller, a catcher, and a shortstop, I'll be extremely pleased with that.
I think they need a little more than that because now
I
Bellinger
don't know if
might
they're
be
going to be
down.
able to address everything in one trade deadline. Do you?
I'm not saying everything, but to bring in at least two, maybe three, if you can swing it, bats. I'm not talking about premier players. I'm talking about good players. I wouldn't mind seeing Jazz Chisholm.
And Judge and Stank
Honestly,
got back in a
I
perfect
wouldn't
fit.
mind if they traded Jazz Chisholm for Luis Ariz straight up.
Oh,
I'm done with Jazz Chisholm.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
But I think the front office loves Jazz Chisholm, and it's nothing against the player. It's just he has too many. He's too streaky. He's already said he doesn't like playing in the cold weather. Let him go play out in San Francisco.
Well, if the Yankees front office loves Jazz Chisholm, then that makes me very concerned about Jazz Chisholm because what the Yankees front office love doesn't always lend itself to winning, to the ultimate winning of a World Series.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see.
To me,
We'll
that's not
see when Judge and
endorsement.
Stanton will be back. It just went.
Yeah. Hopefully by late August, and they have 1 month basically to get into game shape and then try to do it in the postseason. It's going to get a little bit rugged, but we'll see how the trade deadline goes.
Do you know who's a dark horse for Skubal that we didn't mention? You know, is going to.
I mean, I think it's Milwaukee. I think it's Milwaukee.
Tampa Bay, and maybe Milwaukee. Tampa Bay might be a player for Skubal. So that'll be interesting.
Maybe. Mancrush and Knucklehead of the week.
My man crush of the week is Cam Schlittler. Taking away what he's done on the field, and to me, he's clearing away the AL Cy Young this year. How he handled not being named the AL starter by John Schneider of the Blue Jays, I understand what Schneider did. How he said it and how he delivered it wasn't on point. He went with his own guy with Cease. Look, Schlittler's better than Cease. Period. I mean, the Blue Jays are a mess. I mean, Austin Wells, the catcher for the Yankees, has more home runs than Vlad Jr. this year, if you can believe that. How he handled it, he's just one of those bulldogs who's going to file it into the back of his mind and look to shove it up Toronto's ass the next time he sees them. I'm sure he was bothered by it, even though he didn't let you know. And he said, I'm not even going to pitch in the game. He said he wasn't going to pitch in the game before it was made. I'm wondering if he got back channeled that he wasn't going to be the starter, and he should have been for the American League. But he's my man for everything he does on the field and off the field. It's hard not to be in awe of Cam Schlittler.
Yeah, I would agree. I 1-0 a win over the Phillies, in a big series against that particular team. So carrying the Yankees to a victory on the road against a tough Phillies team and shutting out a Phillies lineup that's rather potent. So he's my man crush of the week as well. Who's your knucklehead of the week? I had a bit of a hard time with this one.
I will say this. A video surfaced, through Giants media. It was at the very beginning of rookie camp. John Harbaugh made a speech to the team. It was kind of a rah-rah speech, we are the New York Giants. I mean, that's who he is. This team, this New York Giants team is a flagship franchise in the National Football League. I know they've hit a very, very rough, disastrous patch in the last 10 to 12, 13 years. Yes, they have. They've lost their way. But everyone, including a lot of Giants fans, coming out and idiots like Stephen A. Smith coming out and completely blasting Harbaugh for this speech. I mean, what the hell are you people talking about? The guy gave a rah-rah speech. Who cares? He's John effing Harbaugh. The guy wins. The guy has brought professionalism. The guy has brought winning back to a flagship franchise in the National Football League. All of these people, including a lot of Giants fans, I must say, need to shut the hell up. So everybody who made a huge deal over that Harbaugh speech, and Google it if you haven't seen it, and you'll probably have the same reaction I did because I had to Google it. Like, okay, he gave a rah-rah speech. Who the hell cares? So anybody who's blasting the Giants or Harbaugh, whatever, for doing this, shut up.
I actually able to amend my man crush of the week to Kyle Shanahan, who was involved in a car accident that I didn't find out until our group text yesterday, 11 days ago. Wondering why we're finding out about it now. Perhaps they were hoping he'd be ready and would overcome his injuries, busted ribs, a concussion, among other things, busted nose. He's actually going to be at training camp in a limited role, but the fact that he's showing up shows you how committed he is to his craft, to his profession, and to the 49ers as a whole. He's a really, really good coach, but showing a lot of courage as well in this whole situation that
Absolutely.
just happened. So my man crush of the week, aside from Cam Schlittler of the Yankees, is Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, wishing him a full recovery. And hopefully this will be a rallying cry for the Niners, because I know the
Yep.
Niners, a lot of Niners players love playing for Kyle Shanahan. So we'll see how the team comes together in training camp in this situation. My knucklehead of the week is Clutch and LeBron James agent Rich Paul, who on his radio podcast, a podcaster and an agent, by the way, it's kind of an interesting combination, but talking about LeBron James' decision will not be rushed. He will not be rushed into a decision after Adam Silver said, asked LeBron James to figure out a team so they could work out the schedule, which I could understand. And then 2 days later, his decision is finally coming out that he's going to the Philadelphia 76ers. So was that rushed? I would say it was a rush, and here's why. If it was a rushed decision, don't you think that the decision would have been known on the first day of free agency, which I think was about 4 weeks ago? I hate when they're not going to be rushed. He has a right to do this. Tell me something I don't know. Like, all we want to know is which team is he going to sign with? Now, he's not going to be rushed in the decision. We already know that. But it's not a rush decision at this point because we're almost a month into free agency. So what were you waiting for to begin with? All these public statements, talking just to talk. I'm this guy. I am who I am. I have this podcast. I represent this player. Just stop with news is supposed to be substantial and informative. It's not supposed to be BS. And that's mostly what we get from these guys, especially this time of the year. So Rich Paul is my knucklehead of the week. Final comments, Jack, you're on.
The National Football League is back. I think some teams report to camp today or tomorrow. I know the Giants are going down to West Virginia. This is going to be a participation final comment. You as a Niners fan, myself as a Giants fan, real 1 or 2 sentences. I will let you know I am predicting 9.5 wins for the Giants this year, which means I'm hedging my bet between 9 wins or 10 wins. I think the Giants do make the wild card this year. That is my season outlook for the New York Giants. I want yours, sir, of the San Francisco 49ers. How many wins? You can hedge it a little and put the half like I did. Where do they finish? A couple sentences about your 49ers this upcoming year since we're getting back to business.
Tough division. A lot of people think the Niners may finish third in the NFC West, and that's possible.
They can finish third with 11 wins,
Yeah, no, they could.
So, season outlook. I'm not asking what playoff seed and all that stuff. Season outlook, win total, and overall picture of the Niners this year.
I'm going to say 9.5 as well. I would say 10. I would say 10. But I'm going to say 9.5. I'm going to give myself a little bit of breathing room here. They have the Rams to start week 1. And Kyle Shanahan, I don't know how ready he's going to be for that particular game or how much he'll be able to prepare the Niners for that game. So the Niners might be coming in at a disadvantage already. They rarely lose their opening season game, but then the Rams rarely lose. One of those teams is going to be 0-1 after week 1. I don't like this matchup in week 1 by the NFL, to be honest with you, especially going to Australia. So I'm going to say the Niners at 9.5 because they will have a tough schedule just because they play in the NFC West alone. I'll say 9.5 for the Niners. Overall wins, no more than 11. I would say 11-6 as a team, 9.5 wins. I'll cover, I'll hedge there. So that gives them either 9 or 10 or possibly 11. I'll say 11-6, but place the over-under at 9.5 because they have a very tough game to start out with. The Myles Garrett Los Angeles Rams in Australia, halfway around the world, and Kyle Shanahan currently dealing with some rather significant injuries coming off a car crash. That's a rallying cry for the Niners, but also affects how well they'll be able to prepare for that particular game. And one of those teams will be 0-1 after week one, and we usually don't see that from either the Niners or the Rams. So 9.5 for the Niners, up to 11 wins this season, anywhere from first to third place in the NFC West, maybe third place behind the Rams and behind the Seahawks.
Perhaps.
And the Giants with the Cowboys, the Commanders, and
well, they open up with Dallas, then they head to LA
yeah.
for the Rams in week 2. Then their schedule softens up. I think the floor for the Giants is 8 wins. I think the ceiling is 10 wins. I know that's a small window, but I think they have some real pieces. I'd like to see some more offensive weapons around Jackson Dart, but they've improved there, assuming health, with the additions of guys like Ricard and Isaiah Likely, the New York Ravens. So I think floor is 8 wins. Ceiling right now this year is 10 wins. I think they have one of the top 3 front sevens in the National Football League on defense. So I'm really excited for Giants football with John Harbaugh at the helm. I think the Giants are a playoff team. Wild card. I don't think they're winning the division, but I think the Giants get into the playoffs this year.
There's actually another. So my comments are there's actually another sleeper team in the NFC that I think is not getting talked about enough just because of the quarterback situation, and that team is the Minnesota Vikings. I know Kyler Murray has not been a great quarterback in the NFL, but he's got a lot of talent, and obviously J.J. McCarthy, his biggest problem, aside from health, is accuracy. Sometimes I think he throws the ball too hard to show off the strong arm that he has to have more touch on the football like Drew Brees. As a matter of fact, if I were him this offseason, I would have worked with a guy like Drew Brees on putting more touch on the football. We know he has a strong arm. So the quarterback situation in Minnesota is being scrutinized, and rightfully so. That being said, we talk a lot about infrastructure of an NFL team these days. Minnesota was a 9-win team last year, despite not having a healthy quarterback all season long, starting 3 different quarterbacks throughout the season. I think Kevin O'Connell is the real deal head coach. That's one advantage that Kyler Murray has. Brian Flores might be the best defensive coordinator in the game, leading a very, very good defense. Oh, by the way, you've got a pretty good receiving core with Minnesota. You've got Justin Jefferson, who might be the best receiver in the game. You've got Jordan Addison, who's a very capable number 2 receiver as long as he stays out of trouble off the field. You've got Juwan Jennings, a former 49er, guy I know well, one of the best possession receivers in the game. And you've got TJ Hawkinson, a tight end, a decent offensive line as well. I think the Vikings, with Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy, if he could step up and get better, have a chance to have a successful year this year and surprise people in the NFC North. The quarterback situation is questionable. That's fair. But you can't question the fact that the infrastructure around a team that won 9 games last year, despite all the injury issues they had at quarterback, that's a team that can come up and surprise some people this season, given what they have around the quarterback. It's just a matter of how productive and how successful either Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy are going to be. And with that, the living room is closed, and we will head out to the day. This has been the Living Room Podcast, a Die Hard Sports Radio production. For Jack Angelo, I'm Steve Itzkowitz, a.k.a. Speakeasy Steve, reminding you that every sporting event is time well spent. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Steve Itzkowitz, ITZ, at speak-easy-Steve. Pull up a chair and let's talk sports. Have a good day, everybody.